Alright, so this is my Pantry recipe finder. Basically, it is an application or program that allows the user to enter the number, so a bunch of ingredients that they may have in their pantry or kitchen already, and then see a list of possible recipes that they could make from that list. So for instance, I've entered this list of items separated by commas, the ingredients that are in my kitchen. How many recipes would you like to see displayed as results? And okay. And then we get a list, and it shows us the title of the recipe ID from the API, the number of ingredients that we have that are used, so chicken pieces or chicken and milk, the number of ingredients missing and what the ingredients are. And so we can go down here to 10, to tater tot chili cheese casserole. We're using one ingredient, our cheddar cheese, from the list, and we're missing chili and tater tots. If we enter then the recipe number, it will give us the instructions for that recipe. So instructions for the tater tot chili cheese casserole. And there are different ways to make it. So we have the freezer meal instructions, and then to cook it after it's frozen, or if you want to make it in a crock pot, we have those steps to the instructions. One thing I did notice is that some of the data from the API is not correct. So heat oven to 35, that's obviously not right. But I double checked the JSON, and that is actually what's coming from the API. So it's just an issue on their end. The data is not accurate. You can see down here that it does say bake at 350 for this other. If you're making it, if you make the recipe from the frozen option, it shows the correct information. So, all right, let's minimize that. So I'll just go step by step here through the main. So this is our entry point. I've already set the Spinacular API key is an environmental variable, so it's hidden. And then we are going to check and see if we have the correct key. Well, like if it's null or blank, and then if it's not right or it's not set, we're going to give feedback to the user. Otherwise, we continue. Create the client using, create client using the API key. Prompt the user to enter the ingredients separated by commas. We're going to read that input, and then we sanitize it, so split it and trim it, and then put it back together so it makes it easier. If the ingredients are blank, the user doesn't enter anything, we're going to prompt them to enter at least one ingredient. Going to ask them how many recipes they'd like to see, and by default we've got it so that just in case it would give 3 if they didn't choose. Then we call the API using the ingredients and our end number of how many we're trying to get. If there's no recipes, we're going to provide feedback to the user. Then we're going to loop through using the index and print the recipe title, the ID, all of the output that you saw. So the used ingredient count, the list of ingredients, missed ingredient count, and the missed ingredients. And that's, of course, offset by 1. So we're numbering from 1. It's obviously not 0. And then once that is displayed, the list of recipes, we then again prompt the user to enter the recipe number. We're going to read that input, make sure it's not blank, make sure that it's not out of bounds for the length or size of the recipes, make sure that it's not null and it's not 0. And then it's, of course, it's index offset by 1. Then we use the client, and we get the steps for the instructions and print it out. All right. Then let's go real quick, and I'll just talk about the API smoke test real quick. So before I built the recipe client, I went and created all the code in the smoke test first, so I could make sure that it was calling the API and got and the response correctly. So some of the code that was in here got moved to the recipe client, but there's still the code in here in order to do some testing and check it. So that's what this is. It's just a quick way to verify the recipe client works. And then let's go over to the client. Whoops. Okay. So we have our function. We have take the ingredient list, the string, and our number input, and then create the list recipe summary. This URL, we use the URL encoder so that we don't break the URL to build the endpoint, and then we're using the find by ingredients endpoint from Spinacular with the included parameters. So ignore Pantry is just like if you already have water, salt in your pantry. Ranking sorts them so that it goes by recipes that you already have the most ingredients for. Create our connection is a get request, and then timeout if it times out after 5 milliseconds. Get the response, read the HTTP response code. If our response, of course, isn't successful, then we're going to give feedback with the response code. And if there is some, this prints the error response body. If there is something, returns empty list. And then, so we read the JSON, and we're going to parse it. If for some reason there's an error, we're going to print that error. Make sure we manage our connection resources. All right, and then we parse the recipe, the JSON, create a list to hold the recipe summary objects, and we're going to loop through that for each recipe object in the JSON array. So we need to get the title, the used ingredient count, the missed ingredient count, a list of strings for those ingredients, and then we convert that just into we build our recipe object and add that to the list and return our final list. So that's what we're doing here. And then basically get recipe instructions follows the same concept or idea, but we have a different different API endpoint. We have majority of similar logic, and then I think most of this is pretty self-explanatory. The thing is the recipe instructions, some of them have sections or section titles. So that's what this is for, is to make sure that if the section, to build the instructions correctly. So let's see. Like if there's optionally, here it is, to cook section or freeze instructions, then we display that correctly. And that was, I showed that in the output. For the length of the array, we get the steps, and then disconnect. And then last but not least is the data class for the recipe summary, which we saw in the output. Again, we need to get the ID, which is an integer, the title, which is a string, the used ingredient count, integer, missed ingredient count, and the used ingredients list of strings. So that is the Pantry recipe finder using Kotlin. And I hope to be able to add some additional functionality at some later point.